Welcome to the 700 Club. North Korea is one of the most oppressive, if not the most oppressive nation on earth. They have brutalized their people. They have several million locked in gulags that are unspeakably cruel. Their diet is so restrictive, their actual stature is stunted compared to the South Korean neighbors. And yet, the man who's the heir to all of this has been feted by our president in Singapore and hailed as a man who loves his country and wants to do good things. Well, he's murdered a few of his relatives to stay in power, and we wonder. So that's my take on it as somebody who has been in North Korea, was involved in the Korean War, and has been up there up close and personal. But in short, after intense meetings, President Trump and Kim Jong Un pledged to work at getting rid of North Korea's nuclear weapons. The agreement falls short on specifics, and even President Trump admits it will probably take another meeting or several meetings to make it happen.
Still, it's the first time an American president and a North Korean leader have met face-to-face. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has more on the historic events.
President Trump spent some 5 hours with North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un, and in that short time signed a historic agreement to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. President Trump and Kim Jong Un made history with a handshake and a face-to-face meeting.
Chairman Kim has the chance to seize an incredible future for his people. Anyone can make war, but only the most courageous can make peace.
The two leaders were smiling in Singapore, followed by the signing of this document. The key phrase is that in exchange for security guarantees, Kim reaffirms his commitment to denuclearization of the Korean peninsula.
Chairman Kim has told me that North Korea is already destroying a major missile engine testing site.
We
had a historic meeting and decided to leave the past behind, and we are about to sign a historic document.
The agreement establishes new U.S.-North Korea relations, building towards a lasting, stable peace. It also allows the U.S. to recover POW MIA remains from the Korean War. Trump said the U.S. will cut back its military exercises, but it will not withdraw any U.S. forces.
We have right now 32,000 soldiers in South Korea, and I'd like to be able to bring them back home, but that's not part of the equation right now.
Trump also said that human rights were part of the discussion, including the treatment of Christians who face brutal persecution in North Korea.
Christians, yes, we brought it up very strongly. You know, Franklin Graham spent and spends a tremendous amount of time in North Korea. He's got it very close to his heart. It did come up, and things will be happening.
And he spoke movingly of American college student Otto Warmbier, who spent a year in a North Korean prison and died days after returning home to the U.S.
I think without Otto, this would not have happened.
It's hard to believe that months ago, both countries were ready for war, Trump threatening fire and fury against the rogue regime. The sanctions on North Korea will not be lifted until progress of denuclearization is verified.
The world will see a major change. I would like to express my gratitude to President Trump to make this meeting happen.
Now, President Trump called Kim a worthy negotiator and plans to invite him to the White House right here behind me, which means more meetings with North Korea are in the near future. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
Is the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, is that some kind of a code? There's some people that think to the Koreans it is, that it means that the United States won't fly any more planes with nuclear weapons overhead, that they won't maintain ships out in the harbor someplace that will have nuclear weapons, that they'll take all the firepower away from Korea. That's what they think it means. So are we talking the same language? CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Rosales is with us now. And Eric, North Korea has agreed to work towards getting rid of its nuclear program. Do you think they really are going to do this as just one more empty promise?
Well, Pat, as the president said,
This is a process. This is kind of like the appetizer of a four-course meal. Because the regime cannot be trusted, as you mentioned, the economic sanctions will remain on North Korea. That is until we see viable signs of change. But this agreement is historic. Let's take a look at what we've accomplished. The rhetoric name-calling between Kim has stopped. The testing has stopped. North Korea missiles are no longer flying over Japan. Kim blew up at least the entrances that we know about of that nuclear test site. And more importantly, Americans being held in North Korean prisons are now home. He's done something that no other president has been able to accomplish.
Well, Eric, this thing has been really good for Kim Jong Un. I mean, he's gotten a lot of press, hasn't he? And has this elevated him too much, do you think?
No, personally, I do not believe that we are elevating him too much. That's the rhetoric that the left is putting out right now, that Kim has President Trump right where he wants him. Let's face it, Kim is at the table right now because he's out of money, his people are starving, and he doesn't want a coup to take place. You know, even in North Korea, the state media there is actually saying that that this meeting is taking place, and that's big for state media, informing the people that a meeting is actually taking place. The maximum sanctions, pressure sanctions, are working. Since 1985, the United States administration has tried embargoes but failed. The maximum pressure is working. President Trump drew a line in the sand and basically told Kim that it's now or never, or face war.
Well, now, what about verification? What needs to happen to make sure it doesn't turn out like the Iran deal?
Exactly. Those deals are going to continue to take place in the future meetings. And I believe in those meetings, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and National Security Advisor John Bolton, they're going to play more of an active role. The president also plans to bring Congress into the mix. So whatever is agreed upon, no future president can change. And we've seen Kim Jong Un's father, his grandfather, come to the table and then back away from these deals. So part of the talks will include sending in international inspectors into the country to make sure that the dismantling of nuclear facilities do take place, and that the pressure will continue. You know, President Trump drew that line in the sand and Kim jumped. And that is actually a very, very good thing for the United States.
Well, I'm glad you're so optimistic. North Korea has a terrible human rights record, but it wasn't discussed much at this summit. How important is that to the President and Mike Pompeo going forward?
Yes, definitely. More meetings will take place in the future. The human atrocities have to be discussed, and we heard from President Trump that some of those were discussed a little bit. And I've actually learned that North Korea will be extended another olive branch, an invite to the upcoming ministerial summit, which will take place here in Washington, D.C. That's going to be held by the State Department, and Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback, will be holding that meeting. And that's where the U.S. is going to be presenting evidence if countries want to keep the best people in their countries, if they want to get rid of terrorism, they must offer religious freedom. And yes, a lot of issues do need to take place and be worked out, but right now we are on the right track. And you know, Pat, as we both know, God is in control. It's interesting. He has a sense of humor because it was 31 years ago that President Ronald Reagan told Gorbachev to tear down that wall, and this summit takes place on the same day.
Well, that's great. Well, Eric, I'm glad you're so optimistic. I hope you're right. And this would, if we could take away the threat of nuclear war in Asia, nuclear war against America, it'll be a wonderful thing because he's
certainly would.
Yes. Well, Eric, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Well, in other news, just before the summit, one of President Trump's closest advisors in Washington was rushed to the hospital. Ephraim Graham has that.
Pat, the president's chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, is doing well after suffering a mild heart attack Monday night. President Trump tweeted just minutes before his historic summit meeting with North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un, Kudlow is being treated at Walter Reed Medical Center. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said doctors expect Kudlow will make a full and speedy recovery. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey came under fire for celebrating a discount on his Chick-fil-A meal. Dorsey tweeted an image of his 10% savings thanks to a feature on the Chick-fil-A mobile app. Users quickly pounced on the CEO for praising a fast food franchise whose owner, Dan Cathy, is outspoken about his support for biblical marriage. LGBT activists were outraged Dorsey would associate with a company they view as bigoted. Dorsey later backtracked on his tweet. However, others didn't see a problem with his action, saying it's just a chicken sandwich. Pat?
Well, I would agree. Can you imagine these people on the left? I mean, there's nothing right. You know, if you believe in marriage, all of a sudden you're a pariah. Can you believe that? Well, what the Cathy family, and I've known Truett Cathy, who's now passed on, but his son runs the company. They're enormously successful, enormously popular. You go around Chick-fil-A and the lines are just out into the street for people who want to, because the food apparently is quite good and the service is excellent. And they are being patronized. And so somebody gets a discount at Chick-fil-A and says, isn't that great? And suddenly the left jumps on him, how dare you? We're part of the LB, whatever it is, LGBT. All right, and this is Rainbow Month, and how dare you eat a chicken sandwich and somebody who believes in marriage between a man and a woman? Isn't that horrible? That's the kind of society we're in. It makes me sick in my stomach.